The man who forgot his name. The morning sun over the city of Oak Haven was bright, but for the man sitting on bench number 42 in Central Park, the world felt like a blurred painting. He looked down at his hands. They were calloused but clean. He looked at his clothes, a navy blue coat, sturdy boots, and a silver watch that had stopped at exactly 8:15. Then, he tried to do the simplest thing in the world. He tried to say his name. Nothing came. He reached into his pockets. There was no wallet, no phone, and no ID. All he found was a single brass key and a small, folded piece of paper that said, "Don't look back until you find the blue door." The man stood up, his legs feeling heavy. He felt like an actor who had walked onto a stage without reading the script. Every person walking past him seemed to have a destination. They had names, families, and histories. He was a blank page. "Excuse me, sir," a voice chirped. The man jumped. A young woman with a camera around her neck was looking at him. "Are you all right? You look a bit lost." The man opened his mouth, but his throat was dry. I think I am. I don't know where I'm going." "Well, where do you live?" she asked with a kind smile. "I don't know," he whispered. The realization hit him like a physical blow. "I don't even know who I am." The woman's smile faded into concern. "Amnesia? You should go to the hospital or the police station." "My name is Clara. I'm a photographer. Maybe I can help you find a clue." The man looked at the brass key in his hand. "I have this and a note about a blue door. The dot." Clara's eyes lit up. "The blue door?" Everyone in Oak Haven knows the Blue Door. It's an old bookshop on the edge of the harbor. But it's been closed for years. "Why would you be going there?" "I have no choice," the man said. "It's the only lead I have." As they walked through the city, the man began to experience echoes. He didn't remember facts, but he remembered feelings. When they passed a bakery, the smell of cinnamon made his heart ache with a sudden, sharp sadness. When a bicycle bell rang, he instinctively reached for his left shoulder, as if expecting a bag to be there. "You're remembering things, aren't you?" Clara observed, snapping a photo of a fountain. "Your body remembers what your brain has hidden." "It feels like I'm a ghost haunting my own life," he replied. They reached the harbor. The air turned salty and cold. The sound of seagulls was loud and chaotic. At the end of a narrow, cobblestone street sat a building that looked like it was leaning against its neighbors for support. Its paint was peeling, but the door was unmistakable, a deep, ocean blue. The man stepped forward. His heart hammered against his ribs. He inserted the brass key into the lock. Click! The door groaned open. The inside of the Blue Door was not a bookshop. It was an archive. Thousands of files, boxes, and photographs lined the walls from floor to ceiling. "This isn't a shop," Clara whispered, her voice echoing. "This is a record office." The man walked to a desk in the center of the room. On it sat a single file with a blank cover. He opened it. Inside was a photograph of him, younger, standing in front of a large, complex machine. Beneath the photo was a letter. To the man who is reading this. If you are here, it means the experiment worked. Or perhaps it failed. You volunteered to test this lethal device, a machine designed to help people with deep trauma forget their past so they could start over. You were our first subject. You chose to forget because you said your name carried too much weight. The man's hands trembled. I chose this? I threw my life away on purpose. Look at the back of the photo, Clara suggested. He flipped it over. In messy handwriting, it read, Arthur Pendergast. Husband. Father. Architect. As soon as he read the name, Arthur Pendergast, the dam in his mind broke. He remembered the smell of his daughter's hair. He remembered the blueprint of the Oak Haven Bridge. He also remembered the car accident. He remembered the rain, the headlights, and the empty chair at the dinner table that followed. The grief was a tidal wave. He slumped into the chair, buried his face in his hands, and wept. He finally understood why he had wanted to forget. The weight of being Arthur Pendergast was the weight of a broken heart. Clara placed a hand on his shoulder. She didn't say, "It's okay," because it wasn't. She just stayed. I thought if I forgot my name, I would forget the pain, Arthur sobbed. But the pain was still there. I just didn't have a name for it. After an hour, Arthur stood up. He looked at the brass key, then at the file. What will you do now? Clara asked. Will you go back to your old life? Arthur looked at the blue door, then out at the bright, busy harbor. I can't go back to exactly who I was. That man is gone. But I can't live as a blank page either. He took a pen from the desk. At the bottom of the note, he wrote a new sentence, Arthur Pendergast is learning to breathe again. He walked out of the blue door and locked it behind him. He didn't throw the key into the ocean. He put it in his pocket. It was a heavy key, but it was his. Clara, he said, turning to the photographer. Thank you for helping a stranger. Anytime, Arthur, she smiled. So, where to now? Arthur looked at his stopped watch. He didn't fix the time. Instead, he looked at the sun. I think I'd like to go buy a new wallet. And then, I think I'll go buy some flowers. He walked away, not as a man who had lost his way, but as a man who had finally found his starting line.